Good morning, everyone. So happy to be with you. Good afternoon. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies and the Success Strategist. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on Spotlight on Success for you and your business. Building on the topics from 2023, our week one, now going into week two, a phenomenal year. We're going to focus on the topic of readiness. Readiness primarily for your business, but given the discussion that we had the last week, it's really important for you to understand that this is just as important and just as relevant for your personal and professional journey that you're undertaking. When you're dialed in, your business will be dialed in. And when you're able to strategize and action your own personal and professional success, that's when you're going to be able to scale exponentially your business success. So please know, when we're talking about this through the lens of a business, we can take the concepts and apply them to what we're doing in our personal life, what we're doing in our professional roles, because oftentimes as entrepreneurs and business leaders, we are serial strategists, we are serial catalysts, we are change agents in many different areas, both domestically and sometimes globally. So again, personal, professional, business entities, please take the message and apply to all, if you would be so kind. So again, week two of Spotlight on Success 2024, we are talking about readiness and the 6 key areas that we need to be focused on to help you and your business move past surviving and into thriving. Our aim and goal for these sessions is in 2024 is to help you 10x plus your life and your business undertakings. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the role that readiness and research play in your scaling opportunities in 2024 and beyond. We don't want to go just from our gut. I know that as entrepreneurs and CEOs, decision making is large part of what you're experiencing, what you're feeling, the culmination of your experience base. But we need to temper that immediate need for snap decisioning and action taking with some robust data and research frameworks to help you arrive at the best results for you later on. So I'll ask your support in 2024 to try to meld these two things a little bit more. How can I strengthen the data and research gathering, as well as my usage of a strategic framework to inform my operations and further actions? And so what is the wonderful integrator is our strategic framework. So we're going to be coming at this from, if you're new and haven't built a strategic framework and an annual plan, it's not a heavy lift. I'm not asking you to go from 0 to 100 in 1 week or 2 weeks of 2024. What I'd like to ask is that you get 3 goals, even if it's on a 3x5 card, that you have 3 actionable business, professional, and personal goals that you are focused on, that you will be taking action on, and that will ultimately help you 10x your business and your life. It's that simple. 3 goals. The next aspect of, and you'll see as we move through this where we're going to get to, is we need a target. Without a target, We can say we want to do X, but without a target, that's a percentage, that's a movement in growth, that's a movement in revenues, that's a movement in the clients and customers that we're serving. That's a movement in the portfolio we're building. That's a movement in the expenses that we want to streamline in 2024. We can't then measure against those mile markers. So as part of this discussion today, with regard to readiness, it's the baseline is going to be, I have a strategic plan, I have a strategic framework, and you might have an annual business plan that goes with that. Oftentimes, our strategic plan, strategic framework looks out 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, and if you're already awesome at this, 10 years plus. Then we have an annual business plan that helps our executives, our boards, our partners, our clients, our customers, and most of all, our staff understand where we are headed and how we are going to get there in 2024. Our targets can sometimes be very stretched, and that's okay, because if we are not thinking big, we're never going to be able to scale to that 10x mile marker. And then we need to learn how to measure on some incremental basis how far we've been able to move the needle. And then last but not least, and you'll see it's one of the elements here, what is the data, the automated way that we can collect, analyze, and report on data to help us see at any given time how we're doing against the strategy and against our annual business plan. Because it helps us course correct if we didn't create the right set of assumptions, or if driving environmental forces skewed our assumptions somewhat. Or 3, if we had a gap, it helps us understand if we're far off the mark, up or down. Perhaps we missed a factor or an element that we now need to take into consideration. So first and foremost, in our readiness checklist for Spotlight on Success 2024 is research. And that's because not all businesses and phases of maturity of your business is created equally. So we want to honor, no matter where we're at along the spectrum. If we are thinking about incubating a business, we're a solopreneur, we're an entrepreneur, we are a serial entrepreneur, we already have a long running, small, medium, large size business, nonprofit community group, whatever that looks like to you, this framework is harnessable. But research is the key. So we have to understand, what are the methodologies, what are the frameworks, and what are the key elements that's going to help our business type best prepare for strategic change. And so why does that matter? Because we have multiple types of assessments. Some assessments cost a lot of money. Some assessments can be done from a self-assessment, and they're freely available to all. So we need to ascertain where we at with regard to our readiness maturity. How comfortable are we with the methodology, a framework, and key elements? Do we need to do research there to understand what our options are and how we need to undertake this? For example, you can go to the NIST website or Google Baldrige Performance Excellence, and you will get multiple organizational assessments that you can self-assess against. So it will help you understand what the elements are from the Baldrige Performance Excellence standpoint. You can Google digital transformation readiness assessments. You can Google innovation readiness assessments. So there are different aspects of your business that you may wish to examine. You can Google process and enterprise maturity models. All of those in aggregate will enable you to assess the different aspects of your business so as to gauge how ready you are for a strategic change initiative that you're implementing. Because again, those strategic change initiatives are not all created equal. If you're doing a large scale technological rollout or infrastructure project, if you were doing a large scale process improvement and automation, if you're doing a large scale workforce analysis, etc., right? We need to understand what is most important from that change effort. So, what are our priorities? And then, what are the methodologies, frameworks, and key elements from a research that we need to get familiar with and that we could potentially harness? So, oftentimes, we have assessments, and I want to caveat the statement with the fact that there are holistic assessments and there are special assessments that are narrowly tailored to focus on a specific aspect of our business. Sometimes it helps us when we look at both, so that for the more general assessments, we can understand what we can do a deeper dive in a certain people, process, or technology area to help us get the information we need to be able to best move forward. Additionally, there are flavors of assessments to help us understand how ready we are for change versus what is our capability set in a particular area. So I also want to draw the distinction between the type of assessment you do. A readiness assessment is not equal to a current state capability assessment. They're two separate things. It doesn't mean you cannot combine them into one assessment approach. I'm just saying the way that we typically do that from a what is your current state capability set in the people, process, technology area, and what we look at from a readiness to take on change in a particular area takes additional questions, takes additional elements, takes additional analysis and data. So just be cognizant of the fact when you're undertaking this that you'll need to meld and integrate if you want to answer the mail on both of those items. So research number one. Two, and we just touched upon this, the assessment itself. Part of what we need to do as business leaders and entrepreneurs is understand how broad and how deep are we going to go with this assessment, i.e., are we going to ask our partners, are we going to ask our clients, are we going to ask our customers, are we going to ask the ecosystem, are we going to ask our staff, are we going to ask our board, our leadership team? Who is going to be undertaking the assessment, and have we crafted the elements and questions and inquiries to the right stakeholder? So oftentimes when we're designing the assessment, we have an overall outcome, again, ascertaining current capabilities. B, what is our readiness to take on a major change, right? So we want to look at the outcomes and the results that we want to achieve through the assessment. Next, we want to ascertain this set of stakeholders that we want the assessment to be taken by, or are we doing this on behalf of them, right? And if so, then we really need to make really informed assumptions there. So I would advise that we engage all stakeholder parties that would need to be represented through the assessment and at least understand their perspectives, their objectives, their outcomes and results that they would want from an assessment if you are going to try to do this on their behalf. I especially as you're learning and going through this, the more data you can collect from a stakeholder base in a certain area, the more likely you will be to perhaps have an aha moment instead of trying to do it on their behalf. So again, element number one, research. Element number two, the framework and structure and goals and objectives and outcomes of the assessment. And then deciding, are you going for current state capabilities or are you going for readiness? There's merit in both. There's merit in combination, and there's merit in just having your organization understand where you're at from a baseline readiness perspective to be able to scale. So you can factor it however best suits your current maturation of your organization or what the board or an executive team has levied on 2024 for you. The next element is analysis, and that's part of structuring the assessment, right? So if we really look at this begin with the end in mind, we would work backwards from step 6 to step 1 to inform each of those steps. Element 3, analysis. We're going to be looking at when you do your research, when you design your assessment, how are you going to make a finding actionable? Does that part of the assessment need to be quantitative, qualitative? How are you going to be able to consume the information and make sense of it? Especially if you have a large organization or a large amount of stakeholders that you're collecting information from. So analysis, quantitative, qualitative. How am I going to score, weight, analyze the data? Am I going to be using tools that I may not be familiar with? So that's another decision. How ready do I need to be from a maturity standpoint, from a technology and process perspective, to be able to take on some of these larger scale assessments? Or am I going to really think about incrementally moving the ball forward in 2024 and doing a self-assessment? Then perhaps I'm going to operationalize that with some automation. Then perhaps I'm going to expand my assessment approach to include readiness and current state capabilities so that I get a better understanding of not only how ready, but what if I'm looking future state strategic portfolio, what else could I be, what other levers can I be pulling as I'm attempting to 10x the organization in 2024? So again, research, assessment, analysis. Start with the end in mind, understand what you want to achieve through each of these steps to help inform the type of robust analysis you need to be able to move to step 4, which is your business reframing, your portfolio reframing, your community group reframing, your nonprofit suite of services, right? So we reframe in many different ways, as well as personally and professionally. So reframing just means, we are ready as executives and professionals, as leaders, to receive the findings that the analysis gives us, and we have a willingness to understand how we can apply those at the people, process, and technology layers of our organization. Because sometimes, if it's not what we wanted to hear, there can be a little bit of resistance to some of the findings sometimes. So I would say, especially in step 4, as we're ascertaining how we can reframe our business, we can reframe ourselves professionally, we can reframe ourselves personally in order to be able to scale to that 10x level. This reframing aspect's hugely important with regard to breaking through a prior ceiling of success for your organization, your teams, your product and service portfolio, or your ability to scale. So building some readiness muscle for yourself before you take this on for your business is really one of the major keys for success. So what are we doing in this reframing? We're really going to understand what the analysis is telling us with regard to our current state and regard to our level of readiness to take on large scale change in 2024. So it's going to tell us how quickly we're going to be able to pivot. It's going to tell us what we need to do, oftentimes through a set of recommendations, how we can better align our resources. Perhaps we can optimize our strategy. Perhaps we can optimize our portfolios. Do we need to do strategic hires? Do we need to implement process improvement, continuous innovation, automation, some technological infrastructures? Do we need to create more stringent governance processes in order to be able to scale? Do we need to look at partnering? Do we need to look at different types of business models or entities, right? It really is extremely informing, extremely illuminating, and extremely exciting to when we can get to this point of ascertaining how, when, how, and with whom we are going to reframe with. So step 5 out of that is, once we have done our research, taken the assessment, done the analysis, gotten our recommendations, am now open to reframing and have reset our strategic and operational way forward, we now need to create the data strategy, the governance strategy, the automation or process improvement strategy to help us collect and analyze in as real time as possible how we're doing against that reframe. It's not enough to do the planning. It's not enough to do the strategy. It's not enough to refresh your annual business plan without putting in the supporting, bolstering data collection, analysis, and reporting mechanisms that we need to allow you as entrepreneurs and business leaders, as board members, as solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, to understand, am I hitting the mark? Did we get this right? Did we reframe in such a way as we are moving along our arc to 10x? And so it's going to show you, am I above? Am I below? Did we meet our new set of assumptions correctly? And if not, what do I need to do? Are we going much further, much faster than we thought? And so therefore, do we need to reframe again at a higher level? Or did we hit some kind of valley or constraint that we didn't realize we would have during our analysis and recommendations or reframing? Did something not come to fruition that we thought was heavily important or prioritized to that reframing? So did we hit a wall somewhere? Did we hit a constraint? Were we not able to make a strategic hire? Were we not able to automate something? Were we not able to put in some piece of technological infrastructure? Did we not have a governance set of policies, et cetera, procedures, processes in place to protect against something, right? So the data helps us readily see either above, at, or below our business reframe levels, and also informs the next iteration of this. This hopefully will not be a one and done scenario for you. And if we can automate this process from the beginning, it's really much easier for us to be able to do this on an iterative basis, not only once a year, once every 3 years, once every 5 years, but really have that be built into your business DNA so that you can pivot and create new opportunities through the data that you're collecting, analyzing, and reporting on daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. That's the ideal state, is to help create this infrastructure, processes, and readiness approach, so that you can harness and use this to help you scale constantly. Last but not least of our readiness elements is looking at the results. So the results matter, right? You've created a strategic framework with outcomes and results, but we also need to understand the results of the readiness process writ large, and we need to then integrate it with the strategic framework results. So think about us putting up a dashboard for your annual 2024 strategic goals, initiatives, and targets. Where am I with regard to that? But then also think about, if we look at it from a maturity model standpoint, how mature are we at ascertaining readiness? How mature are we at ascertaining current state? How mature are we at our reframing, right? So we have another set of results that we can gather to not only understand the efficacy of our implemented business reframing changes, but to help us understand how well we did with this readiness process overall. So we want results from both layers of our organizational maturation, the outcomes and results from a strategic framework standpoint that we're now able to achieve that we weren't able to achieve before, and our maturity level to ensure that we are getting better and being able to help our organizational scale using these 6 elements of our readiness approach. So again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrell, the CEO of Global Innovation Strategies, these success strategies, bringing you this Spotlight on Success 2024 Week 2 topic of readiness. We hope that this helps you prepare yourself personally, professionally, and your organization to get ready to scale 10x or whatever arc you have prioritized for 2024. This is Dr. Rhonda Farrell signing off today, and we look forward to bringing you a new topic in our Spotlight on Success series next week.